there's a few plays that you can do with a podcast, right? You can do it as like an ABM, an account-based management play. Someone doesn't search corporate wellness services or corporate wellness company for fun. They search it because they need help with it. If you're building an MVP and it's your first website, fine, do something basic. But when you want something to be more substantial and drive a steady flow of leads and convert cold traffic, warm traffic into a steady flow of sales pipeline and revenue, it needs to be built around your customer, not guesswork.
Welcome back to another episode of Revenue Mechanics, where we dive under the hood of revenue engines to find out what makes them tick. And today we've got an amazing guest with Sam Dunning, founder of Breaking B2B and also the founder of a top 10 B2B podcast. So we're going to be exploring some interesting topics today around podcasts, websites, SEO, and I'm sure a lot more. Sam, welcome to the show.
Hey Sam, thanks for having me on, man. Looking forward to the convo.
This Sam thing is probably going to get awkward.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll switch to
everyone.
mate or friend.
Yeah.
But as in good Sam Dunning fashion, as I learned from you, I've also been going down the path of not spending 30 minutes going into someone's backstory and hearing about how they were born and where they went to school and everything. Kind of just jumping straight into what they're doing today to really get revenue engines moving and how they're supporting, whether it's clients or their own business, get going. For yourself, obviously, you, as I mentioned, you're the founder of one of the top 10 B2B podcasts in the world, which is no small feat, 400 plus episodes, I believe now. When it comes to podcasting, I guess, what got you wanting to start a podcast? And then what sort of impact has that had on your business since then?
Yeah, it's a good question. So initially, business impact, not a lot. I started the show, so I started Breaking B2B just over 4 years ago. So it was actually in the midst of COVID around 2020. And I started it for my own selfish reasons. So back then, I basically started it because I wanted to learn from folks that were way ahead of me in certain areas of business. So it could have been entrepreneurs, sales leaders, marketing leaders, or just smart founders. So back then, there was no strategic marketing play like I have got a bit of it now, which I'll go into. It was more so like, I don't know if you know the protein bars, Grenade, like that company in the UK. Yeah. They're quite known here. So a guy called Alan Barrett, I admired that he grew a business from zero to kind of multi-millions selling these protein bars in a much wider range. So I interviewed him. I interviewed other business guys, sales leaders, marketing leaders, but it was called Sam's Business Growth Show. So it was super vain. And it was just me basically interviewing these guys, chopping up promo clips, so giving them a bit of promo on social and stuff, but didn't really drive any business impact. And then as time went on, I thought I should probably try and, this has given me loads of tips. Like I've learned so much. I've improved my confidence on camera, speaking to a mic. I've gone from shaking like crazy on the first interview to actually being able to run a sensible conversation with someone. And it's improved my communication, my outreach skills. But let's try and get some business impact. Let's try and get some revenue. Let's try and get some leads and some pipeline. So after probably a couple of years, I renamed the show, and eventually now we're renamed Breaking B2B. Mainly because with podcasts, you want to make sure the actual title of the show is relevant to one of the industries you serve or the main keyword people might search on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. And then I thought, well, we sell B2B SEO, we sell B2B websites. We might as well try and get some clients through the door. So I thought I'd be a bit more strategic and I'd invite on kind of marketing leaders. In our case, we tend to go after like VP of marketing, CMOs, demand generation leaders. So I thought, we like to work with B2B tech companies. We like to work with B2B SaaS. That tends to be our ICP, our ideal client profile. Let's invite those folks on. And it doesn't have to be a blatant sales pitch. We can invite them on and say, look, we're running a somewhat established show in the B2B space. I'd find those folks on LinkedIn. LinkedIn was a really good channel for us to connect with these kind of prospects. And I would just send them like a painfully short connection request on LinkedIn, like, hey, Steve, or hey, Jess, like, enjoyed your recent post on XYZ. I've got an unusual idea for you coming on my podcast. Like, are you against a conversation? Something like that. And 95% of those would accept. We'd have a bit of a back and forth on LinkedIn. They'd come on the show. And then I'd ask them really, like, what kind of topics can you speak passionately about? I'd be very upfront that this wasn't like a storytelling show, we want the audience to actually get actionable tips if they're tuning on YouTube or tuning on the audio podcast. And then it was a great way to do a 30-40 minute recording with them and give some value, actionable tips to our audience. But at the same time, I'd have a bit of back and forth with the guests before the show. We'd speak to 5-10 minutes about their business, what they're up to. Again, we might speak for a couple of minutes after the recording. And then some of those folks would come on to, of course, connect me on LinkedIn. I might add them to my email list so they'd see my stuff and eventually reach out if they needed SEO website help. Some of them, anyway, would curiously ask at the end of the call. They might just say, "Well, what do you do, Sam? Like, is there any way I could be helping you?" Or some of them, if I thought they were a good fit, I would just say, like, "Enjoyed the show. Is there anything I can be doing to help you?" Or I might just do a subtle pitch, like, just curious, like what you're up to when it comes to driving organic inbounds for your website. And they might say, we've got a team, or we do it all in house, or they might say, oh, we're actually struggling. They're like, what do you folks do? So it's just a really good way to build relationship with target prospects, give actionable tips to our audience, which are B2B founders and marketers that want to up their marketing game, and kind of strike new conversations, get referrals, get intros. And yeah, so that's kind of how the show evolved from me being super vain and trying to learn for myself to actually trying to make a business case. But we also do, I should probably note, we also do solo episodes. So like our show is probably a mix of maybe 70% guest episodes and maybe 30% solo episodes. So on the solo episodes, I'll talk about B2B marketing channels that we're experimenting with at our company, or kind of SEO strategies that I'm using for clients to drive inbounds, or weird ways to improve your website conversion rate. So try and do a bit of a mix so I can give that kind of solo episode for lead gen and then also the guest episode insights. So that's kind of how we've slowly evolved it over 4 years or so.
Yeah, so it's kind of serving two purposes, I guess, as like a bit of a pillar as a part of your ecosystem in terms of the long form content for people to consume, but also acting as a networking opportunity to, one, establish some authority, establish some trust, and network your way into potential opportunities and prospects as well. Do you have other mechanisms within your ecosystem that support the podcast? I know you've got a fairly popular newsletter as well. What else do you wrap that ecosystem around?
Yeah, ecosystem's a great way to describe it. So yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of a pillar piece of content like a podcast, right? Is it can be chopped up into so much. So for example, with ours, we'll record the podcast and then we'll put an episode page on the website itself with the YouTube video embedded, a write up, links to the audio episodes, and so on. We tend to do a weekday newsletter. So we'll one day a week, we'll distribute that podcast there. So all the folks that are signed up to the newsletter can see it. Probably just like yourself, Sam, we'll chop it up. We'll chop up the episode into video clips that we then, if it's a guest episode, we can send them and they can promote it to their list or to their socials, to their LinkedIn. And likewise, we'll chop it up and promote it on my page and on the Breaking B2B page as well. So there's so much replay value that you can get out of it. And then likewise, if I was to do a solo episode where I talk about a specific topic, be it B2B marketing channels we're experimenting with, or SEO strategies, or website tips, then again, that can fuel a bunch of video clips that I can use on socials, but it can also fuel a long form blog article post. It could probably fuel several long form LinkedIn posts with kind of really actionable tactical tips. So yeah, there's so much that you can pull out of those things when you repurpose them nicely.
100%. And I know now you've obviously, as part of your company, you've started supporting other businesses to start implementing podcasts into their ecosystem and into their world. Has there been anything interesting you've learned in the transition of, say, doing it yourself, where it is your baby, it's come from your idea, to trying to support others, maybe from a mindset perspective or implementation, any roadblocks you've come across throughout that process?
Yeah, there's a few. I suppose the main thing is, I think a lot of companies don't stick out podcasts. So they don't actually, this is probably not what you want to hear if you're thinking about starting a podcast, but it is quite a lot of work. Even if you have a team to manage all the production, i.e. creating the long form video, chopping up the audio, then doing the promotional kits if it's guest episodes or solo episodes, and making the promo videos, the audiograms, whatever, making the long form blog posts, the web pages out of everything. But you still need to, as a host, you still need to do some prep if you're having guests on. Or if you're doing solo episodes, then you still need to prep like what are the topics we're going to talk about? Are they actually going to be actionable for our listeners or the people that are watching and tuning in? Are they going to give them like decent value? Are they going to take away something from this episode that they perhaps didn't know before, or give them an unusual idea that they can put into practice today? And also, is it going to be searchable? Like, is this going to be a topic that's actually searchable, like a relevant keyword that our audience might search for on YouTube or Apple Podcasts and the rest of it? So there's a few things to consider because there's, like we talked about just now, there's a few plays that you can do with a podcast, right? You can do it as like an ABM, an account-based management play, account-based marketing play where you invite on target prospects. You can do it from a thought leadership play where you do more solo episodes and kind of become well known in your space for giving advice, educating, etc. Or you can invite famous people on in your space, in your niche, in your industry, and kind of build up the podcast that way. So there's a lot of different plays with it. So I think one of the most important things is a lot of businesses forget, if you want the podcast to drive revenue, you've got to do the groundwork before and think, what is the end outcome we want? So we're going to run this as a 6-month trial. Okay, great. Let's go with the hypothesis that, okay, we're going to do it as a relationship building play. Maybe to start with, we invite some prospects in our pipeline. Cool. What are we going to talk to them about? Who are we inviting? What's the play? Like, let's do the groundwork so we know exactly what we want to get out of it, and let's measure it properly rather than just saying we're going to start a podcast. Let's hope something happens.
Let's hope for the best and cross our fingers. And how do
Yeah,
you
exactly.
when discussing that with founders, because obviously it's say a less sexy pitch than the attribution-based pitch. It's like, hey, we're going to get you X amount of leads and do this and that and so forth. But we obviously all know, or anyone that's I guess worth their salt know that buyers don't buy linearly. There is a a jagged path that they will go through. They'll play in your ecosystem for a bit, and a
Yeah,
podcast,
exactly.
as you've said, plays a vital role in that. But how do you get that communication across? Are you sharing different metrics to measure and manage? How are you getting that communication across to founders?
Yeah, mainly I'm quite a straightforward person. So mainly it's being upfront. So it's saying, especially, I mean, most of the time, if B2B folk, B2B service companies, etc., want to start this, they've probably got a reasonably mid to high ticket offer that they can provide to clients. And I'll say, look, think back to the last time you invested a decent amount of cash in an offer for your business. Did you just suddenly wake up one morning and buy it and think, oh, I'm going to spend 50 grand or 60 grand on this offer that I'm going to use throughout the year? Did that happen? And they're probably saying, no, of course not. I thought about it for some time. I did my research. I maybe looked up the founder or the team on social, maybe listened to their or watched some of their stuff on YouTube. I think, okay, so you looked up quite a lot of stuff. You maybe Googled around their offer. You maybe compared them to alternatives. You might have consumed some of their educational content on YouTube. And eventually, when you trusted them enough that they could deliver, you bought. Well, your buyers are exactly the same. They're not just waking up one morning deciding to spend 50, 60, 70K on your offer. They're doing research, they're comparing you to other vendors, they're listening to your stuff, they're watching your stuff, maybe they're consuming your stuff in feed if it's on LinkedIn. And then when they trust you enough and they're ready to invest, then they're going to kind of book that call and take the next step. So podcast is a piece of that B2B puzzle if you're putting it on channels that your audience consume, just like SEO is a piece of the buying journey because you can rank for your blog articles or your landing pages, or your website pages. But it's rare that someone just goes to one channel and then buys. There's usually
Yeah.
a number of channels. So it's mainly about doing that background research, which is more than this podcast, but understanding the channels that your target, your dream clients actually use, and then making sure if a podcast does make sense or a YouTube channel does make sense, then we're getting that in front of them. And then, yeah, to answer your question, there is, of course, metrics that you can follow, but they might not always be as relevant, depending on the play. Because if your podcast is more of a relationship building play, it doesn't necessarily matter that you've got tons of people tuning in. Whereas if it is, you do want to connect with the audience, build up the ICP, and over time get those to trust you and book demos or get your lead magnet, whatever, then you probably do want to be checking audience numbers. You probably do want to make sure you're distributing podcast snippets and stuff and where they hang out, and probably are checking that those metrics, i.e. downloads or views or stuff, are steadily ticking up. And eventually you are getting inbound leads or demos or lead magnet downloads on the back end. So it's all about setting up that foundation and knowing what steps folks should be taking.
And one of the areas that you just touched on then, as another, I guess, pillar of your ecosystem being SEO, as I like when I first got into marketing, for example, or into the agency marketing world, I was always told that SEO was a long-term game. It takes 12 months before you start to see any traction, so on and so
Yep.
forth. And that was what clients were told. And then they'll do 3 months of on-site work, nothing would get done. And like it was, from my observation, was just like a kick the can down the road type of exercise for a lot of businesses or a lot of
Yeah.
agencies. But from the results that you've seen, or like I've seen you achieve, like you've obviously ranked Breaking B2B above some major players in the B2B space, and also seeing that you rank your videos, you rank, as you said, articles, etc. So it all starts to kind of form around that pillar of your ecosystem. How are you getting such fast results from an SEO standpoint, but also how is that playing a part to the bigger picture of your ecosystem?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's start. I mean, you're exactly right. The classic thing is that a prospect goes to a digital marketing agency or an SEO agency. They say, we want to look at SEO. They discuss their goals and their objectives, and the team will be like, yeah, great, it's going to take 6 to 12 months. You have to sign a massive retainer. And it's only really win-win-win for the agency. Like let's be blunt, like they're getting a hefty retainer. Whereas the SEO doesn't always need that much time when it's done in a strategic manner. So most of the time, when it comes to SEO, whether it's a company managing it for you or you're doing it in-house, like there's so many common mistakes that we see. And most of the time, that is going for the illusion that high traffic keywords, and when I say high traffic, I mean you type in a keyword in Hrefs or SEMrush or whatever SEO tool you use, and it looks like it's driving tons of visits on Google per month. But oftentimes, those are some of the worst ones to go for because those are usually informational based service searches, like
Mm.
how to do something or best ways to do something or things like that, which are what we call top of funnel SEO, where someone's searching for a question. But at best, if they're searching that question, they'll see an article. Even if they click your article, they're probably going to skim the content, get their answers. Maybe at best they'll sign up to they'll check out your YouTube channel or they'll check out your lead magnet or check out your email list when that's fine for building top of funnel activity and nurturing folks over time. But really, just like with anything in B2B marketing, you want to drive pipeline as quick as possible. And for a B2B service company, that's sales calls. So we want to start with prospects that are searching for our offer now. And we want to understand what specifically, and this is what's called long tail searches. What are they searching for on Google when they're ready to have that sales conversation? Let's not mess about at the top of funnel. Let's go straight to the bottom of funnel when they're ready to have that sales convo. So there's quite a lot of mistakes that happen around that. And what I often encourage folks to do, which is not just a good SEO activity, this is just good B2B marketing activity, is literally, this doesn't even sound like SEO, but fire up like a Google sheet or an Excel sheet and make a list of one, the top 3, 4, 5 offers that you provide. And if you're in a service business, they're going to be some kind of service. So I know, Sam, you work with kind of folks in the fitness industry and stuff like that. So think about an offer around that. What are the main offers you actually want to sell? Secondly, what are the main industries that you serve best? So within that, are we talking that you deal with accountants, you deal with law, you deal with service, deal with finance, whatever? And not just any industries, ideally ones that you've sold to well historically, ones that have that expensive problem that you fix, ones that are motivated to fix that problem that you solve, and most importantly, the ones that have got cash to invest in it, because we don't want to target prospects. This is all about ideal client profiles. We don't want to target prospects that might have the pain you solve but can't ever afford your offer. So yeah, make a list of those industries as well, and also make a list of competitors, like top 3, 4, 5 competitors in your industry that always come up in sales calls. And then lastly, which is more top of funnel SEO, make a list of the jobs to be done or the problems that folks come to you to fix. So what are they usually struggling with when they need your help? Like how to do something, like, for example, Sam, what's a common industry that you might help?
So if we use the fitness industry as an
Sure.
example, or any of the,
Yeah, yeah.
normally they've got a bit of organic traction, they've generally built a bit of a brand already, but then they want to amplify that with paid advertising. So we come in and amplify the brand that they've built through strategic paid advertising.
Nice. And some of those fitness clients that you serve, what's their actual offer? Like, what are they selling to people? You can make
Uh,
one up, or you can tell me one.
so I'll just shout out Phil from Connects Health. He sells corporate wellness programs that goes into businesses and helps
Got
them
it.
with corporate wellness.
Corporate wellness. That's brilliant. So yeah, corporate wellness, which is a good one. So his main offer is quite literally corporate wellness, but there's probably a number of ways you can serve that. But what's like the problem that someone might face if they think that they're going to invest in corporate wellness? Like, would it be like, I don't know, how to improve employees' health or how to improve employees' fitness, or
It's
is
normally
that
around
along
like
the?
productivity,
Yeah,
days, burnout, saving on
nice.
insurance as well, less
Okay.
claims, uh,
Yeah,
a higher staff retention, overall
brilliant.
satisfaction. So a lot of angles that, just to shout out corporate wellness, that you should implement corporate wellness for.
This is just good marketing sense. So these are the main problems that people come to solve. And this
Yeah,
is not just good for SEO, this is good for ads and full funnel marketing.
yeah.
So if we know that stuff, we know people are probably searching things like how to improve my employees' productivity or how to reduce employee burnout or that kind of stuff. So that's the problem that he's fixing. So that's more for our top of funnel SEO that we do later. But yeah, in his case, his might be corporate wellness for, I don't know, HR teams or corporate wellness for finance teams, whatever. So we'd make a list of what we call quote unquote those money terms. Another might be best corporate wellness company or corporate wellness agency or corporate wellness services or corporate wellness teams. All those variations of what we call these long tail keywords that folks will search when they're ready to have a sales conversation. Exhaust those because those are our money keywords. Then once we've done that, we'd run that through a tool like SEMrush or Href to check they've got a little bit of search volume, but we're not worried about those having loads of traffic. Because as
Mm.
long as they get a little bit of search volume, they're going to attract high intent prospects. Someone doesn't search corporate wellness services or corporate wellness company for fun. They search it because they need help with it. So if we can then get a page, whether that's a landing page or an article, depending on what Google is serving to folks when they serve that, if we can get a page that's going to rank for that term and is going to be like the simplest way of putting it, the most helpful, trustworthy, and useful page on the internet for that offer, then we can start ranking for it and we can start showing Google that we're a trustworthy site. And at the same time, not only ranking for it, but looking to convert prospects and saying, look, this is the offer. This is probably the problem you're struggling with. This is the impact not fixing the problem. This is how we're equipped to solve it. Here's some proof. Here's some customers we've helped, like video reviews, testimonials, quotes. Here's some FAQs that we usually get asked on sales calls. Why he's so expensive? How long does it take? Do I get an account manager? And here's like an easy way to book a call. So like that's a straightforward way of doing it. But it's basically flipping SEO on its head. So not going for tons of traffic to your website, going for less traffic, but more sales ready prospects that are
Mm.
actively in market for our offer and making sure we have content that's kind of built to rank. A lot more to it. That's a simple way of putting it.
Yeah, and as I touched on before, when I first got into the marketing slash agency world, there were quite a few companies that were throwing out like first page guarantees. Will guarantee you get to the first page, which sounds cool on paper, um,
Yeah.
but a lot of the time, anytime I saw it actually executed, uh, and this is from me being inside the agency. Not knowing much at the time, being green, they would choose the longest tail keywords that they could find
Yeah.
that had no minimal relevancy to a buying journey or buying period, just the easiest, quote unquote, the ones people don't want, basically. Get get the business to the first page, and it will take them 6 to 12 months because it takes time. Get them there for these useless keywords,
Yep.
and then go, oh, we fulfilled the guarantee, so you know, no money back or no 3 months or anything. We got the guarantee. Oh, but it didn't drive any business for me. We got you to the first page though. And I saw that across not just that agency that I was in initially before I left, but there were other agencies out in the world that make those sort of outlandish offers. When
Mm.
you speak to prospects that have those skewed expectations because of marketers and agencies like that, uh, how do you navigate that conversation to to explain the things that you spoke about just then and the actual impact SEO can have without it being guaranteed, because obviously we can't guarantee anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you said, it's more of an education piece, isn't it? It's more that these teams, and like you say, not every agency. There's plenty of good SEO practitioners out there, freelancers, contractors, agencies, and stuff. But when you have, and I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with a guarantee or an offer. I think it's more that when you cloak that and say, we're going to get you this result by this time. But then when they're ranking for, I don't know, let's take it back to corporate wellness. If it's a keyword like corporate wellness, when you're struggling with pain points and your employees want to reduce burnout, and it's like the longest keyword ever that no one's ever searching for. And it's like, what is the point? Like, that's going to get
Yeah.
like one visitor a month probably to that page. Definitely not going to drive leads because it's the longest word ever that no one's even searching for. And yeah, it's just a silly thing. So I suppose it's more of a, when someone comes to you for SEO, or this is just good advice for B2B service providers in general, knowing that not every prospect you speak to is going to be a good match for your offer, and vice versa, you to them, and more saying like, let's take the time to understand exactly what your offer is, who your ideal client profile is, the problems you solve, the end result you bring for clients. Let's analyze the competition out there. In SEO's case, let's actually decide together if SEO makes sense for your category, where you're at in your business, the amount of cash or resource that you can pump behind it. Are we going to be able to get you results in the next 3 to 6 months or the next 90 days? Like, is it worthwhile? Do you have the cash or resource to bang into it to make it make sense? And quite often I'll have conversations where it doesn't. And I'll say, look, you're probably too early for SEO. You're in a very competitive category. We could do a bit, we could do some top of funnel stuff, but I'd actually wait until you've got a bit more cash or resource to pump into it, and it'll make more sense.
Mm.
Whereas some companies might say, look, we want to hit it full steam. Let's go kind of the first 90 days, Sam. Let's do everything we can. I'll be like, fine, let's do it. Or other companies, they might be in a new category that's just not that known. There's not many people searching for what they do on Google. I'll say, look, your audience actually is hanging out at events. They're a bit more old school, or they're consuming a lot of YouTube content. Like, start there because the audience is there. Over time, let's look at Google once we can allocate more resource to it. But right now, the thing to remember with SEO is it's best placed as a demand capture channel. So you need to have an active amount of prospects searching for what you do. Otherwise, it's just not a sensible thing to invest in.
Yeah, and I think one of the key points you mentioned there is like that education piece, or that education gap, that obviously, again, one of the reasons for a podcast and one of the reasons for content and producing these things is not only necessarily to drive leads, drive opportunities, and do that stuff. Obviously, it does do that. But at the same time, educate your audience so that by the time they do ideally speak to you, they're aware of your philosophies, they're aware of how you operate. And I find this on the paid side, because there's, similar to SEO, a lot of skewed expectations. There's a lot of places that pitch paid advertising as the secret key to unlocking the market. All you need is more leads. When paid is, as a number of marketers have explained, it's an amplification for the business. If the business is crap, then you're just amplifying crap into the market. So if message, offer, all the things you've spoken about are off, paid SEO, none of it's going to do anything because the business infrastructure is broken.
Yeah.
With that education gap, obviously you've got all these prongs. I know you're you're very strong on website design as well, and giving the right information, not hiding information, all the things you speak about on your socials. How important is the website as a hub to all that information, and then the spider web that comes off that with the content to help educate buyers?
Yeah, exactly. So I often say your website can be your very best or your very worst salesperson. So it is important. And there's so many, especially in kind of more traditional B2B service industries, that say the website doesn't matter because all my business comes word of mouth or referrals or prospects. And I'll say, look, well, that's great. Referrals, word of mouth is the best form of marketing, but you don't know what you don't know. And they'll be like, what? What do you mean? And I'll say, well, do you think that someone's ever referred a prospect to you? What do you think if they go online, what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to head to your website. Well, if your website is, I don't know, slow loading, looks terrible on their mobile, their PC, like awful potato style design, It doesn't clearly give a snapshot of exactly what you do, who it's for, problem you fix, and how you help. Maybe it doesn't share proof of results, so past clients you've helped. Maybe it hides pricing, or it hides, if you're a SaaS or software business, it hides like a demo or example of the offer in action. Doesn't answer some of their questions. Like if it hides all this stuff where it's really difficult to find, and then they try to book a call, but they've got to fill out like a 50-page form or upload a document, they can't just click through and book time on a calendar. Like, do you think that would put some people off? And they're like, well, yeah, it might do. Or do you think any prospects might have fallen through the gaps because your website's neglecting that stuff? Like, well, maybe. So do you think the website might be a bit more important than you thought? Yeah, possibly. So it's like one of those things. Like a lot of folks think, well, I don't do SEO, I don't do ads, I don't do social. A lot of my work's with word of mouth, but even so, the website kind of reinforces that trust element. Um, and I often compare, like one of my favorite analogies is some time ago, a uh, a salesperson reached out to me on LinkedIn and they pitched me for this offer, which is rare, but I actually needed that offer at the time. I think it was a piece of SaaS for a solution that I needed to fix. And I hopped on the call with the guy, and for the first 10, no joke, for the first 15 minutes straight, all he did was speak about himself, how many awards he'd won, how great he was, how awesome his company was. I couldn't get a word in edgeways. He took no time on that call to ask my question, ask kind of about my business, any issues I was having, why I wanted to look at this software, and so on. And after 50 minutes, I cut it off. I said, mate, all you've done is talk about how great you are. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go. And that's it. Like your website can be a terrible salesperson if all it talks about is awards you've won, how many years you've been in business, how awesome you are, cutting edge your tools or your services. It's like we know that people don't care about that stuff. Like you can talk about it later in your website, but if someone's just landing on the site, they want to instantly know that you know their world. So you understand, like, this is what you're looking for. This is how we help you. This is why we stand out in our marketplace. And this is exactly kind of what we can do for you, like the service we provide, and then encourage you to learn more, check out results or book a call. So a lot of folks, there's so many mistakes that people make with with their website, but those are just like a few
Yeah.
few of the killer ones.
And with anything that I and everyone I speak to, I like even my partner, friends, they all eventually at some point, if they're in a buying mindset or buying cycle, they will find their way to a website to see what whether it's they want to know more about the business and their culture, whether they want to see pictures of the product. Like I work with a few gyms, for example, they want to see walkthrough tours. They want to see like, okay, rather than me waste my time driving down there, just show me what's behind the scenes. For example, today I was looking at some share offices, and an ad popped up. And the ad looked good, had a good picture on it and everything. I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't opt into the ad. I then went to the company's Instagram page. Oh, yeah, that looks cool. Then went to the website, went through. Oh, yeah, that looks all right. Bookmarked it, went away, and
Yep.
came back at the end of my day, back to the website, and submitted an inquiry through there. So just in that short little window is like one I was in mind because I've been looking at different share office options.
Yep.
And then when something like, the ad popped up, good timing, obviously the algorithm would have attuned that I was looking for that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But I still went on this little mini journey before submitting an inquiry.
Mm,
And a lot of that centered around the website because that's like a big housing of information of the things I need to know or want to know before I even want to submit an inquiry. Find the same effect on ads where if there's poor ecosystem, like bad website and stuff, ad performance just isn't as good as when everything else, like when there's a good website and everything else is bolstered out. What are some of the key information points people need to have on their website, and what are some of the key mistakes or things they need to avoid to have an effective website as a part of their world?
yeah. I mean, there's plenty of stuff I can share here, but from a very basic level, like one of the key things you should think about your website, one of the best tests is something called the grunt test. And I believe it was coined by a chap called Donald Miller. Very good book called Building a Story Brand, which helps a ton with clear messaging and clear website structure. So I recommend you check out that book. But anyway, he talks about something called a grunt test. That means could a caveman could imagine a caveman sitting in a cave in caveman times. Like he's not never seen a website before, but someone sticks a laptop or an iPad, whatever, in front of him. He's seeing your website for the first time. could he, without having any knowledge of your offer, fire up your homepage and within a few seconds know exactly what you do, how it helps him, and how to learn more or take the next step? And as a test, you can put this in front of prospects or folks that have not seen your website before. And if they land on it, scroll around for a few seconds and have no idea exactly what you do and how it helps them, then your website's missing the mark. And this is especially important if you're driving traffic to your site, i.e., from paid ads or SEO or whatever forms or social or email. So just clarity is the first thing. That's where a lot of websites fall short, because you might land on their homepage and then in the top banner or top hero area, it's like a headline like, "We've been in business for 75 years, serving our clients all around the globe." It's like, that's great, but I've got no idea what the bloody hell you do. Be clear, because I'm probably going to evaluate 3 or 4 vendors. I want to quickly know exactly what you do, like how it's going to help me. And like you said, usually, for example, on our podcast, Breaking B2B, we've interviewed nearly 400 or so execs, from founders to marketers and so on. And they've told me they want to quickly, if they land on a website, they want to quickly know what you do, how it helps them. They want to see your offer in action. So if you're a gym, like you say, a video walkthrough, or if you're a software company, maybe a live demo that you can play around with. They want to see some proof of results, so case studies, clients you've helped, problem they came to you with, impact of that problem, why they chose you, results that you brought to the table, video testimonials, client quotes, etc. They probably want to get their common questions answered around the offer, how it works, and so on. They want to check the price, if it's within their ballpark, if they can actually afford it within their budget. And then if you check those boxes, then they want to be able to easily schedule time or book a call with a specialist on the topic. So that's like fundamentals. But then if you go a step deeper, one of the biggest issues with websites in general is that companies, whether that's the owner or the exec team, they build the website. When I say build, I mean they do the copywriting, the messaging, the design to stroke their own ego. It's like we talked about earlier. They'll talk about how great they are, how great their offer is, how cool they are, when really your website should be all about your dream clients. What do they care about? What's their main pain points? What's the impact not fixing the pain points? Why do they want to do this? Why should they consider choosing you? What are the outcomes those folks want? That should be at the heart of your website. And most of that, like you've probably talked about before, Sam, comes from customer research. So interviewing your prospects, interviewing your recently won clients to understand, like, what was the problem they had? Why did they pick you? What was the impact not fixing that problem? What was the results that they gained with working you? What are the words they used to describe your offer? What are their jobs to be done? What are their struggling moments that they then realize that this issue is so frustrating or causing issues or causing revenue loss or causing churn, that they then need to decide in your offer, because that's so important, not just for your website messaging, but for ads and for general kind of outreach and marketing in general. So a lot of websites just skip that research stage and just go straight into designing, which is okay if you're if you're building an MVP and it's your first website. Fine, do something basic. But when you want something to be more substantial and drive a steady flow of leads and convert cold traffic, warm traffic into a steady flow of sales pipeline and revenue, it needs to be built around your customer, not guesswork.
And so it sounds like whatever you're doing, whether it's building a website, SEO, paid ads, podcast, whatever channel, it all kind of stems back to the fundamentals of know who you're talking to, why you're talking to them, how you can help them, and then educating them on what their best next step is to progress through their personal buying journey. But as you mentioned, a lot of places like to like to skip over the fundamentals and just get to the oh, we've got a website up, awesome. Let's wait for the leads to flow in, and then nothing kind of happens from there. I know we're running short on time as we're slightly over, but in some parting words of wisdom from Sam Dunning's mind, for B2B companies or B2B listeners potentially tuning into this, or any content that we share post this, what are the biggest challenges you're seeing in B2B right now, and how are you helping your clients navigate those challenges?
Mainly lack of marketing resource, really. So a lot of the businesses we work with have usually got 1 or 2 marketers, some larger companies a few more, but they're having to balance a lot of stuff. So they're having to do maybe the SEO, maybe some content work, maybe manage ads, multi-platform, LinkedIn, Google Ads, other social channels, plus do a bunch of other tasks. So marketers in general are like notoriously known for just being chucked all these tasks from leadership and stuff like that. So yeah, and I've got a lot of marketers out there are working super hard to actually drive the metrics that matter, i.e. qualified leads, pipeline, etc. So yeah, I suppose that's where our business steps in, right? So those businesses that understand that organic search SEO is a big piece of that B2B puzzle. A lot of prospects do search on Google when they're ready to speak to a salesperson around the offer, or they're comparing vendors or similar. We'll help step in by kind of taking the weight off their shoulders, really saying, look, get back to what you do best. We'll focus on the organic search. We'll help you make sure your website shows up. We'll make sure that it's serving folks relevant content that's trustworthy, positions you as the expert, and converts. We'll rank your website and start making it drive a steady flow of leads or sales calls. So that's where we tend to step in, really, and some of them lean on us to do everything from research to implementation to execution, content, and so on. Some will do a lighter touch approach where we'll do more strategic level of support, and they'll kind of do more of the execution. So that's where we tend to step in, usually understanding what they want to get out of it and seeing if we're equipped to help them.
Awesome, man. You are well known online for the sheer amount of value that you give away, whether it's playbooks, resources, walkthrough guides. You give a lot of stuff away. What is the best place people can find you, research you, and learn more either about what you do, or even just get some value from your content?
No, I really appreciate it, Sam. And thanks for having me on. Thanks for having me ramble on. So yeah, there's three main places. One is LinkedIn, Sam Dunning, and I'll share daily tips on making SEO in your website your best salesperson. Second is the podcast, Breaking B2B. We've got 400 plus episodes with guest interviews in B2B marketing, and also solo episodes on all the stuff I've talked about. Or thirdly, if you're perhaps tired of seeing competitors above you on Google search stealing traffic and leads around the clock, then let's see if we can fix that with our new unusual approach at breakingb2b.com, and you can book a call or grab my free resources.
Awesome. Sam, thanks for coming on. There was lots of gold nuggets throughout that chat. So I look forward to editing it up and going back through it myself. But again, thank you for the time, and I look forward to doing this again.
Thanks, man. Keep fighting the good fight.